Of course. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, so Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we know that you are just one Montanan as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. My name's Ben Catton. I'm a Montanan that grew up in Missoula, Montana. I have lived in a few small towns across the West, Lander, Wyoming, and Driggs, Idaho, and a year in Alaska. And I'm happily rooted back at home in Missoula, raising two kids. I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. I'm a policy associate with Montana Environmental Information Center, and we obviously are really invested in trying to put some guardrails around data center development in Montana. And so I think that's what we're going to talk about today. And yeah, Montana's seen some pretty surprising, pretty alarming proposals that will radically change our relationship to energy, our relationship to water, if they come to fruition. And we need, as a community, to make some hard decisions and ask some hard questions. So happy to be on here with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Ben. And Ben, by the way, I just want to say, like, when I first found out about these data centers, you were like the angel that came out of nowhere and gave me all the information all in one swoop, and has been continually giving me more information every day. So that's why, like, I wanted to have you come on, because you're the one I call when I need a myth busted, right? Like, you're the one that I call. I'm like, hey Ben, you won't believe this. I just heard this, or hey Ben, I just heard this. Walk me through this. And so I kind of think that's kind of what I want to talk about. Is I want to talk about these myths, like what we're coming up against when we go into these communities and we're talking about data centers, and what we're coming up against when we talk to the data centers themselves, and their psyche is just a very non-Montana psyche, right? Would you say that with these guys? These guys are very bully-like and just not community-minded in that way. So let's start with this first. Let's start with the big one. Let's start with the water. Can you explain why they are so full of kapucky when they talk about the closed, and I'm being really good, the closed loop system? And this is regards to water. This is regards
Right.
to water.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just first want to say that I'm fortunate that I'm kind of surrounded by really smart folks working at MEIC. So when you call me and I have something to say about something, that's likely because my colleague Nick or Ann or Shannon or Dirk, et cetera, we're all, as you put it in our Broadview meeting, we're all learning about this together. We probably still have more questions than we have answers, but we know about energy, we know about water, and we can then apply those backgrounds to what we're being told by data center developers and see if it holds water or not. So on the water issue, yeah, it's been, I think one of the more alarming things to learn about data centers is just how massively consumptive of water they are. And, you can dig into this and find out that the industry average for these buildings it's measured in what's called a water usage effectiveness rating. And that's a building specific rating. And the industry average is that they will use 1.8 liters of water per kilowatt hour of electricity use. And so if you then extrapolate, do your math from there, that would mean that a 100 megawatt facility would use about 1.5 million gallons of water a day. And so that's your industry average. Montana, I think, having an arid and cooler climate, credibly will use less water than that. But that's still a pretty high starting point as an average, right? So we can, walk down from that a little ways. But we also are talking about facilities, specifically in your neck of the woods, this Quantica proposal, that are 10 times the size of a 100 megawatt facility, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're doing math in two directions then. That has been, there's a huge variety of ways that data centers use water, and that is specific to on-site, because that is the building's rating. And data centers also use water off-site, depending on how they're getting their power. So if, for example, Quantica builds a data center, gets hooked up to the power grid, and has not built its own energy generation, then it's going to be powered by Colstrip. And that's what Northwestern Energy has been pointing to as, we've we've acquired these shares of Colstrip, so now we can power some data centers, and those are super water intensive power resources then as well. So there's different ways that they're consuming water. We're seeing data center executives go around and kind of try to wave this magic wand of, we'll use a closed loop system. And so water is not a concern here now. And I think that there are some, credible pieces of that does, drastically reduce the amount of water that's being consumed. But for one, there's a couple of things to say there. One, it's really expensive. So we need to, first of all, guarantee that these folks are going to use these technologies, because there's nothing in the law right now that says that they need to use the least consumptive technology. For two, there's trade-offs in there and a lot of questions to be asked about what are the recipes that go into these closed loop systems, because as you were just saying, I think, Carrie, and sort of talking about kind of the character of the business that is coming in, this is big tech, right? Mm-hmm. This is move fast and break stuff. And right now, big tech has a stranglehold on our government across all levels. And we're seeing, for example, the Toxic Substances Control Act has just been turned on its head in the last year. And that is a very popular law that says that, we need evidence that new chemicals that are going to be introduced for industrial reasons can demonstrate that they're safe before we start rolling them out and putting them in people's neighborhoods, right? And that has been kind of flipped on its head in large part by these same corporate interests that are pushing for these changes in the law to flip that on its head and say, no, these things are safe until we prove otherwise. And a lot of these things are being developed for data centers. Data centers have been given a sort of special treatment within the Toxic Substances Control Act within this last 6 months because of these changes to get jumped to the front of the line on approvals for those chemicals. And so in large part, that's because of AI and these super high powered chips that are making AI possible, that run really hot. And so now they need to have even more effective cooling. I'll stop in 1 second, Carrie.
Okay.
And
because I want to talk about the chips.
Yeah, they're doing this then direct to chip cooling, and that means that they're trying to put fluids right over the tops of these chips, and that is often then essentially PFAS. They're fluorinated chemicals because they are what's called dielectric. They can conduct heat but not electricity. And so there's a lot there that we need real straightforward answers on, because we want least consumptive technologies. Absolutely. We don't want somebody coming in and using, millions of gallons of water a day. And so if we can minimize that, fantastic. But we also don't want toxic soup in our neighborhood. And if that's the trade-off, that's not a good deal either way. So we need real straightforward, straight talk about what is this and what's it going to look like and how are you doing it, and disclose everything so that we can be sure that this is safe.
Has there been an environmental analysis on that for this particular one?
Of Quantica in Broadview? No, because it's private land that they own. There's no assurance that there will be any sort of environmental analysis for this project.
And they don't have to do one, do they?
No, my understanding is they will not. So
because of the county doesn't have anything out there and it's kind of like the Wild Wild West?
It's not federal land. It's not public land. It's not a project that I guess meets the criteria for needing an environmental impact statement or environmental assessment.
So what about the aquifers? Like the aquifer that runs underneath there is where I live. I have I'm connected to that same aquifer, right? And that would be the upper...
Was it Madison?
No, it's the upper... I have to go back in my notes. Sorry, Ben.
No problem.
Paper pen, girl.
Quantica recently, they said, we're not going to get any municipally supplied water. We're going to dig our own super deep wells. And so, yeah, they're kind of pointing in that direction. We know from our conversations that we've had, these panel discussions, MEIC's been going to communities trying to say, okay, we've got tons of questions. We've reached out to experts, and one of those experts was John Wrighton, who worked for the Bureau of Mines and Geology and did the water studies on the Broadview area, a lot of central Montana. And, he's not totally convinced that there's a viable water source there. For one, it's really complex geology. It's very broken apart. It's really hard to know what the connectivity is within there. It's understudied. And he's also pointed to that a lot of that water, since it's super deep, it's hot, it's full of salts. He was saying that some of these wells are pumping up water, these test wells, that's saltier than the ocean. And so obviously that can't be used for
That
cooling.
can't be used, yeah.
And so it also is not good to, then, okay, are they treating that, and where's the discharge going? If that's being discharged to the surface, then, what are the repercussions downstream from that? So again, it's like, there's more questions.
So
Lots more questions.
and how do we, since it is unzoned, how do we approach that? I mean, how can we make sure that these measures are in place? Because the aquifer there is either the upper or the lower Cretaceous aquifer. And it's a confining, it could be the confining unit. When I look at the aquifer, you have the upper and then you have the lower, and a confining unit is down here. And I'm not really sure. I would think it would be more between the upper and the lower, like right in the middle right there would be where they're going to build.
Targeting, okay.
So wells around in that area are about 30 gallons a minute. But like my solids count is 5,800.
Wow, so super high already. Yeah, and I know that, there's folks that, this is in the East Coast, where large data centers have moved in within 600 yards or so of their homes, and they're on wells, and their wells stop working because they get so much sediment, so much silt that they clog up. And so part of that is the vibrations of the place. Part of that is probably also that they're tapping into the same aquifers. And so, there's serious concern there if you're on the same source. And I think that we can look to what has happened in other places and say, well, if this happened over here, what are you going to do to make sure it doesn't happen here? Or is that a possibility? Is there a way to prevent this?
And how do we say that when the company is not being transparent with us? They won't talk to us, even in their public, like in the realms of media that they have decided to talk to.
They're not giving straight talk.
They're not giving straight talk, and then they're unzoned.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think what you two are doing with the petition to your Yellowstone County Commission is exactly the right sort of path fit. There are folks that are decision makers that can say, we'll pump the brakes on this. There are counties across the U.S. that have introduced moratoriums. In
Bernie,
Coeur
did
d'Alene,
you see
Idaho, Kootenai County, Idaho, they had a moratorium for a full year. I think I just saw in Pennsylvania, a senator, state level senator there, just introduced a bill for a 3-year moratorium on data center development in Pennsylvania. There are, lots of folks saying, if we can't get straight answers, if we can't be assured that we're going to do this in a way that actually provides public benefit, because we're being, given this sales pitch and told, oh, this is a great deal for you. But when we look around and see the existing data centers and the repercussions, how it has gone in other parts of our country, that's not the reality. And so folks are saying, let's halt until we can get assurances, disclosures, transparency. And so that's one method is to do as you're doing and say, hey, let's put some protections in place. Let's put some just some basic common sense things in place here, because right now we have nothing.
Right.
Montana
Yeah.
Montana is really underprepared for this.
Very. And I think they were counting on that, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the folks that were most clued in about, the potential for data center development in Montana, a handful of legislators that likely were approached by, executives over the last several years, and they have, rolled out a red carpet as far as the tax structure, and tried to push some bills in this last legislative session that would have further deregulated our energy system and relationship to data centers through the Public Service Commission. So luckily, those most harmful ones didn't pass, and we still have laws that, if they are upheld, can provide us a bit of protection around the energy side of things. But yeah, unfortunately, we're playing catch up now, and that's regional impacts and local impacts too. One thing that has just kind of come to my attention is that Montana doesn't have any e-waste laws. We have no regulation stipulating recycling or a proper type of disposal. And so, a giant facility is proposed by Quantica. They cycle through servers every 3 to 5 years. And that is, when you're talking tens of thousands of square feet of computers, that is a lot of e-waste.
No, you're talking, I just didn't interrupt you. You're in Quantico's case, you're talking 300,000 square feet times 20.
Is that, yeah.
That's,
wow.
Yeah.
So that is an unfathomable amount of electronics that's going to be plugged in there, and they have short lifespans.
Mm-hmm.
And where's your closest landfill? I mean, that's where that stuff is going to go. And that, again, we're talking about the toxics law, and a lot of those electronics they're full of heavy metals, they're full of PFAS as well. And so, that stuff then becomes landfill leachate, that drifts into your water systems. So we don't have anything saying, hey, here's the roadmap for how you take care of this e-waste. And that is real scary when, there's that potential volume, right, for a community to take that on.
And that coming out on the other end. Because even in a closed loop system, they're going to have to transfer that water that they used out, correct?
Yeah. So the closed loop system, it sounds like they fill it once every few years, right? And so whatever the soup is of chemicals that is circulating through there, the fluid, there's some what they call blowdown. So it loses some small amount of volume, ongoing, and has to be topped off. But then, once every couple of years, the entire system has to be flushed and recharged. And so, that could be millions of gallons of fluid when that happens. And then closed loop systems, they have to be cooled in some other way. So it's essentially like a car radiator, right? And in your radiator, you got your fan. And so you've got a secondary cooling system that is, constantly bringing that heat off. There's an exchange there. And so that's, I think we have this magic wand waved and we think, oh, it all just stays in there. But a lot of closed loop systems then have a heat exchanger, and they're connected to an open loop system, and there's water being evaporated off from that secondary system. Or it's maybe a fan system, an air system. But what we're seeing with AI, especially, is that fan-based cooling isn't effective because these are really, really high-powered chips. So, more and more it looks like has to be liquid cooling. And so, it's just, we need really clear maps and plans of how are you going to do this. Mm-hmm. And don't just say this one industry catchphrase and expect us to be satisfied. Oh, we're doing closed loop. okay, give us a schematic and give us,
And not in an
And where is
RV.
that going after it comes
disclose all
out?
of the chemicals, disclose how often does this thing need to be dumped and recharged. Yeah,
Yeah,
we need all the answers still.
and then in Broadview we have a volunteer fire department. And Ben, my homeowner's insurance is, I live outside of the city limits. And so I'm like, what, 11 minutes?
Yeah, 11, like, yeah.
About 11 minutes from Broadview. So they charge me, I'm paying the lowest amount that I could possibly pay,
Yeah,
$500 a month for homeowners insurance. Because I'm
Wow.
so far away from this volunteer fire department, even though the fire chief lives very close to me.
And the fire chief.
run over with
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
bucket.
We should probably not say. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, because these fires, it's a lot different with the data center when you're dealing with a fire. Like, as far as the 40,000 acres that they're leasing for the solar, those batteries burn at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't put them out with water. You have to have specialized chemical suppression units in order to put those out.
yeah.
And that's
That sounds
Which,
pricey.
by the way, is full of PFAS until we ban that.
exactly, and that's going to cause problems as well. And so, is the town going to pay for that? Do you know what I mean? We can't
Right,
even
absolutely.
afford our own homeowners insurance because the volunteer fire department can't even get out to me. They're basically telling me, if you have a fire, basically your house is going to burn down. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And then
Yeah, I think that's a really important consideration. And there's, again, we can look around and see what has happened in other places. There's 2 data centers in Ohio. There are Amazon data centers that over the course of 2 years, they had 80 fire department calls.
yes.
They're paying 0 in property tax because they scored some sweetheart deal there.
Yeah.
And so that is, all of those calls were borne by the taxpayers surrounding the data center. And like you're saying, yeah, there's a lot of specialized training, specialized equipment.
Yeah.
It's going to be necessary to,
And on the inside of their building too, which is something that they need to pay for, because they have to have these, it's called, starts with an H, I'm sure you know, and here I am, halon gas. Okay,
know
because
anything about.
let's say these things catch on fire inside the
Yeah.
structure itself. They cannot get that equipment wet. If they get that equipment wet, it's going to be super expensive to replace, right?
Yeah.
So what they use is this halon gas. Well, if you look up halon gas, it actually sucks the oxygen out of the room. So anybody that goes in there to work on these things has to wear a special hazmat suit with oxygen attached to them. Because if one of those sensors goes off, the oxygen automatically gets sucked out of the room. There's not enough time to run back, throw on oxygen, and
Yeah.
And that's going to be in our backyard.
that's in our backyard.
Wow.
And that doesn't even
Yeah.
fit in with the landscape of Montana. I mean,
It sounds so science fiction, doesn't it?
I can't even believe that we're having to fight this in Montana, the last great place, the big sky. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that I'm the most disappointed about with our elected officials is that, did you forget where we're at? Did you forget our tourism? Did you forget what makes us Montana? What makes us Montana is not, these data centers. It's the landscape. It's the people. It's the farms. It's the ranch, So I just had to get on my little tangent. It
no, I
just drives
agree.
me crazy.
I don't see any benefits to these. I really
None.
don't, other than the people that are making the most money. Even in labor, you only have temporary labor. And like I was just saying, some of your labor, even the temporary labor, has to be extremely specialized in order to build these things. I mean, how many people are going to be walking around with this oxygen on,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, it's not really that fitting with the character of our communities to begin with. And And I'm sympathetic to, there are a lot of folks out there. When we had our Broadview conversation, there was the union picket up front, and those folks wanted to be sure that, they could express that, hey, we do want this because we want these jobs. And they are very aware that those are short-term temporary jobs, and that's not unusual in construction. That is normal in construction. But they also were, very reasonable in talking about the fact that they don't want long-term, detrimental impacts for short-term gain. And so I think that, I think there is hunger even in those crowds for more information and for more transparency, because I can totally be sympathetic with, I would like that work, and that's going to be good work, potentially the construction work for a couple of years. But if you're from the community and then you're paying, a price through your electricity bills, through impacts on your water resources, through environmental and public health impacts, and then also all of these other things that we're talking about, if we don't have financial assurances from the get-go and some sorts of bonding from the get-go, landfill costs are borne out on the public's backs, and same with fire departments, and same with, all of these other sort of upgrades that are going to be completely mandatory because of the scale of this project. If we don't know who's paying for that up front, that's going to be everybody chips in. And
I mean, right now it'll be us, right? I mean, all this is us, right?
Exactly.
This is the only reason we're having this conversation is because, we're catching on now, right? But if none of us caught on, we weren't able to stop them, right? They would just move forward, and we would all pick up the cost. So I mean, at some point we got to just say, like, our elected officials don't give it if we pay this cost. I know a guy from Virginia who was nice enough to share his electrical bill with me. Data centers just went in his area, just went online and all that. And I'm so sorry. And he paid $930 this month, and then he paid $886 last month.
Whoa.
I mean,
Holy moly.
this is where we're at. I mean, this is real life for a lot of. This is up in Virginia, and he was like, he had quite a little tirade with them. But this is all data center. That's all data center based. Isn't that crazy? So here, can we switch to energy, because I want to get to these. Another thing that we keep hearing over and over. We even heard it from Charlie Baker, little Charlie Baker from Quantica. The small fusion reactor.
Small modular reactor.
Yes, that thing. I always get it wrong.
Yeah, this is another magic wand that's being waved, right? Well, don't worry. There's plenty of energy. We'll use SMRs.
Yeah, we know what those are. Yeah, those exist. And you're like, no, they don't. Like, no, they do. I saw one. Well, my friend of a friend saw one. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. So what we know is that 2 terrestrial, on land, SMRs have been for sure built on the globe.
But where though?
One in Russia, one in China.
Uh-huh.
We have no idea how much those cost. And what we also know is that in the U.S., in the last several decades, the only new nuclear power we have added was in Georgia, the 2 Vogtle plants. That's VOGTLE, if you want to look it up. It cost the ratepayers in Georgia $36 billion to bring them in those, that one, it's one site, but it's 2 reactors.
Can you believe that?
To the ratepayers?
Yeah, to the ratepayers. And so $36 billion. It was, originally budgeted for like $12 billion. So it went way over budget. It went way over timeline. It took them like 15 years to construct these 2 reactors. They're producing like 4.5 gigawatts, so that's 4,500 kilowatts of power in that neighborhood. And so that is, that's over 4 times what Quantica's asking for. But say they want 1/4 of that with nuclear power. What's 1/4 of $36 billion? It's like $6 billion.
$6 billion.
Yeah.
6, or it's more than that. $7 billion. Showing my bad math skills.
Me
So
too.
that's
I
for,
feel like I should
and
have
they're
this
saying, well,
here.
small modular reactors are going to be way less expensive than that. And, we're on the verge of, we haven't seen that. We, it's like, just brings on more questions than answers. It's pointing to something that doesn't exist, is untested. Folks will say, oh, there's small modular reactors on nuclear submarines. And that's also true. But the Department of Defense has gajillions of dollars that they're willing to spend to keep us safe. And that's a way different purpose. That's powering a submarine for propulsion. And so that's not powering an energy grid. What does it take to push a submarine around? And it's also a very different type of uranium, a much more highly enriched uranium than, I think that a public utility can access, or a nuclear, plant managed by a utility. And that's, it's uranium that is like weapons level enrichment. And so, it's just not consistent with anything that's being said about these things. And so, if Quantica has $7 billion to throw down on, just building some nuclear power just to get started, great. And then where does the waste go? Right now, unfortunately, this was another thing that happened in this last legislative session that I'm sure is in part because of these projects. But we had a couple of really important protective laws in Montana fall down, and those were about enrichment and nuclear waste storage in Montana.
And wasn't one of them kind of a quick dirty search? One of them was like, we can pour some stuff of that, some bad stuff into the rivers, and we're going to be like, I swear I read a title where one of the bills was allowing toxins into the Missouri River or something like that.
We've had, yes, I mean, there's so kind of a whole different policy arena, but not, because it's still industrial, related and growth related, is that we've switched from a non-degradation standard for our waterways to a feasibility allowance. So instead of saying we don't want to see our waters degrade, we're saying, what is an allowable amount of pollution? And also with nutrient pollution might be what you're thinking of. We repealed our numeric standards and are now back to a narrative standard. So instead of using science and going out and saying what is the maximum allowance of nutrients in the water here, we're saying does it kind of look healthy or is it looking green? Using a narrative.
Yeah.
So, really a lot of damage done.
Follow the
unfortunately, in
science.
this last legislative session.
So I have a question for you.
So we can't be saying, the law is there to save us. That we need to, as communities, stand up and say, we need our county commissions, we need our local governments, we need our state senators, representatives to step up right now. And,
we do.
Are you seeing any that are calling you guys saying, hey, we want to talk about this, I did a bad vote? Because I'm not getting that. I'm getting a lot of, well, we still need to talk about it. We still need to read about it. I'm like, well, wait, what? Why are we reading about this? Why are we talking about this? I have not seen a hero yet. I'm looking for a hero. Give me a hero.
I would point to Russell O'Leary in Butte-Silverboat County.
That's a hero. Okay, yep, that's a good one.
Authored the letter from Butte-Silverboat to the Public Service Commission saying that they would like to see some protections for residential ratepayers, small businesses, to make sure that we're not subsidizing the costs of these things. He's been pretty active in those conversations at the county, saying we need more information. There was just a postponement of the land sale closing between Savvy Data Centers and Butte-Silverboat.
Mm-hmm.
Montana Connections is the sort of organization that, I guess, delivers those land sales.
By the way, on that quick,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, on that quick note, I need to tell you, Sabi, I need to tell you, Quincy, Washington. I need to email you some stuff. But remember, we had that conversation. Sabi was part of Quincy, Washington, And if you ever hear Sabi talking about Quincy, Washington, it's like the best thing in the world and it's so wonderful. And they've just added. They're in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Quincy, Washington, and Sabi are in a lawsuit over property taxes. So I just want to, like, and that's the stuff that we got to get out there, you know. I do see. Oh, I have a question though. A good friend of mine called me from Vermont, and I didn't have an answer. It's like, I'm asking Ben this. Okay, so ready? In her cute little voice, she's like, Carrie, if we don't let these data centers come in, will they not, like, will, like, I not have AI anymore? Like, why do we need these? Like, obviously we need these data centers for a reason. So they're not going to build these just to build these. Like, there's a reason we need them. And I just was like, so can you, like, you know?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously AI exists right now, and we can, go to ChatGPT and ask it questions, and we can make weird videos, whatever. I think a lot of this is speculative. It's saying, oh, there is a demand for more of this, and then these things are iterative too, right? We're on like ChatGPT 4 or 5. I don't even know. But every time they build a new model of an AI, it's an enormous investment of infrastructure and then energy to train it. And so I think it's an expectation that more and more companies are going to want their own sovereign AI, is what they're calling them. So yeah, it's speculative, and it's a great question as a community to say, how much of this do we want any of this, and how much of this do we want? That's the thing. I think most folks. I don't think AI is particularly popular. That it's sort of being pushed upon us, right? It's really difficult to turn it off in all of our digital applications now, and we know that largely. One of the main things it's doing is crawling through our emails and, invading our privacy. And Montanans love privacy.
Yeah.
And so, I think there is a question there of, to what end? And there are some really, really exciting things that AI can do. And I think that there's, it's not like we can put the genie back in the bottle. I don't think it's realistic to say, hey, let's make AI go away. But I think it is totally reasonable to say, no, I don't think it's worth sacrificing our water or, XYZ for this. And no, we don't need this ad infinitum,
The one thing that I don't think we've talked about yet, and one thing I don't think we've talked about really in our community meetings panels, the sound of these things. Yeah. The absolute sound and the vibrations. I watched a video. The lady was probably about like 500 yards away from the data center, and her walls shake. Like she can't have things on her walls anymore because they just shake and they just fall down. And she's just like, there's just this constant humming in like my chest, like the. So, and then the radiation that they put out as well.
Another important consideration, and that ties to water, because when we hear, these, like, we're going to use a closed loop and air cooling. Well, air cooling is fans, that's where a lot of that noise and vibration comes from. So yeah, it's another, is it just these kind of lose trade-offs? Yes, we want you to use the least consumptive technologies and not eat up all of our water. But boy, does that not sound great. Also, everyone's having constant fan noise or vibrations or, I think it's real. Again, it's like, show us your schematics, show us your plans, show us, your blueprints. Let us make a decision that is based on reality and not on this red herring.
Yeah.
Please.
I mean, just for me, like, if I'm like, I always think I'm smarter than these guys, and I know I am, so I'm going to say it. So if I'm going to build something to this form, why don't I dig for that water first? And then be like, okay, the water's not there. That's what scares me about this, is they know something we don't know. Because they're not dumb guys. Like these guys, John Cheshire, the CEO from his last project, PBS told me the other day he made $650 million off his last project.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these guys know what they're doing, but we talked to John, we talked to Kevin, we talked to, there's no water out there. And then it seems like they added in sewer because that guy from Quantica had a meeting at their building and Cassie and I went. That's how we met.
Oh, Ben, I got to show you their latest model.
Yeah, you got to show. I think I did
This
show
is
it.
the
Yeah.
RV.
This is the RV.
Yeah.
Here, let's show the RV.
The
This is
diagram.
RV.
This is the RV, everybody.
Do you see that?
And Zoe saw it, my 8-year-old, and she said, "Oh, you have a coloring page."
Exactly. Like that is so offensive.
Oh, great.
Isn't that
I love
wonderful?
8-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our blueprint. That's what they're giving us. I mean,
This
that's-
is the blueprint, and you can see the sewer. Quantica provides sewer.
And then Quantica provides water.
That's as
Who knew?
transparent as they're going to be.
We've filled in all of the blanks. We know exactly how it's going to go now.
And then what's interesting to me is I didn't know this until we went to that meeting, but they consider themselves the project management. So they just build this thing, deal with the community, get it in, and then I asked, well, who's your customer? He's like, well, we don't know yet. That's also another concern. Like, who's their customer? Because
I think that goes back to something you were saying, Carrie, about Savvy Data Centers and Quincy, and that in that case they have prior projects that they're pointing to and saying, look at how this has gone, and this is our flagship, or this is our kind of creme de la creme project over here. And when you dig around under the hood a little bit, you realize that you're getting not the full facts. They flew a bunch of the commissioners, Savvy Data Centers flew a bunch of the Butte Silverboat commissioners over to Quincy, Washington to show them, look at these facilities and look at the schools we have and look at et cetera, et cetera. But what they didn't make clear is that Savvy is just one of 29 data centers in Grant County. And so, they're getting tax revenue there from data centers, but they have 29 of them. And so think about, and it's a very different situation because Quincy is adjacent to Grand Coulee Dam, a huge hydroelectric dam, and then the Columbia River. So you've got power and water in a different scenario there. And not saying it's still sustainable to have 29 data centers sucking power and water there, but it's very different. And as you pointed out, yes, so they're generating some tax revenue there, but they also entered into a lawsuit with Grant County to claw back $2 million of that. And so the difference here with Quantica is a newly formed corporation, and this is their flagship project, right? And so they don't even have something to point to say, dig around under the hood over here. We know that John Chesser was with Talon, and he was, the lead on the Cumulus data center project in Pennsylvania. And to me, that's not a real promising kind of thing to point backwards towards because, they sold it to Amazon 2 times. Amazon and Talon, is the power provider there as well. It's right next to this Susquehanna nuclear power plant. They tried to enter into a power contract that FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, rejected because they said, no, this is going to do damage to ratepayers and this could do damage to the reliability of our grid. And so, it's like, do you have a track record that you want to point to? Do you have, but even more importantly, like, what are you specifically going to do here? And, don't give us a cartoon drawing of an RV.
Yeah.
This is not a data center. This is not. And it doesn't really say much for like sticking around, it's like, does this mean you guys pull up stakes as soon as, like an RV?
And leave us with the bill.
Yeah.
They leave us with the bill and all that infrastructure that now, what do we do with that?
Waste,
it's so
all
ugly.
That e-waste
and
all that,
Yeah. What do we do with that? And how do Montanans deal with that or the next person? That's another part of it is it brings down our property values.
Yeah. Who wants to buy a home next to a data center?
Yeah.
You know? We're not popular, and yeah, we're just, nobody's going to want to move in next to noise, next to unknown pollutants, next to
forever chemicals in the water.
That's another part that I wanted to put in that
It's
petition.
not like, oh, well, I'll move in because, I could get hired at the data center. Like, nope.
No, it's a very specialized field. I mean, they probably won't even have people actually, other than security, I guess. That will probably be the only.
Really dismal. Really dismal.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah. And the other part that we can't even do because we don't have a way. The commissioners, I hope these commissioners will stand up. I hope they'll do exactly what Montanans want them to do in this petition. Because
you can push them and they respond to a push.
We need answers.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get these, then I want assurancy bonds.
Yeah.
I want Quantica to put up a $500 million assurancy bond for everybody that lives in Yellowstone County. So that when a little girl has a rare cancer or, a couple can't get pregnant or they keep losing baby after baby or when all of our cows die out in the field and we're wondering what we did wrong, I want it to be paid for by Quantica. I want my medical bills paid for.
And that wouldn't even be enough, right?
No, it's not even enough.
It's not, Yeah.
This feels very much like a boom.
We need our leadership to stand up.
Yes.
We do. We need leadership to stand up. And please, that's part of all of this is get behind all of us. Get behind Ben. Get behind Just One Montanan. Get behind each other and unite.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally nonpartisan issue. Has nothing to do with any social.
No.
I'm
going to a lot of MAGA meetings. I really am.
Future. It's about as a mom, as a dad, as Montanans, it's about wanting what is the long term look like? Yes, we're hearing the short term boom of listen to money talk, and that's not my highest value.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. So I would rather not have some money sitting there for when I get sick. I'd rather not get sick. I would rather not have to worry that my kids are going to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'd rather, even though we say that it's all in the testing, who knows where it'll go, all these things, right? But what if what if it is a moral issue? What if it is a moral issue too? Because we sit here and we listen to these tiny little souls tell us that they want to become a doctor, that they want to become a lawyer, that they want to do all these things, right? And we're hearing right now in real time that AI is being trained for these kinds of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we going to tell them?
What are we going to tell them?
Yeah. And that's another, a billboard I saw, Cassie, that really freaked me out was a drawing of a little girl in her bed, and then the billboard said, AI does my daughter's homework. It is my daughter's best friend. It is her first boyfriend. This list of really kind of creepy things and it's I don't want that for my 5-year-old.
No.
And I think there are some really cool and exciting things that AI can do. There's a lot of really creepy and awful stuff that it's doing as well. And I think that that's a consideration. I think that's particularly a community consideration that, is this the character of our community that we want to be a data center hub?
I wouldn't say that about rural Montana. I would say that this is very out of place.
So where are these coming from? And by the way, thank you for your time. I want to wrap up
I'm gonna have to hop because I've got to get to to my kiddos here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Aw.
So let's just do this. If you know where they need to where they're going to put up these data centers across the state, please share. And then what Just One Montana can do to get involved. You know what you guys are doing. You know, plug away, and then
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. By the way.
Thank
No,
you, Ben.
Thank you so much for this conversation and for having me today. Yeah. I mean, what we really know for sure is that Northwestern Energy has entered into 3 letters of intent. So that's with Quantica, with Savvy Data Centers, and with Atlas Power Group, which is an existing data center, crypto mining data center in Butte. So those are the ones that are kind of furthest along. And but then, of course, Colstrip, it sounds like there's real murmurs and potential of data center development happening there. In eastern Montana, outside of Northwestern Energy's service territory, there are some big projects that are trying to attract hyperscale data centers as well. So it's a statewide issue. And recently I've learned that Missoula has some background conversations happening just west of town here that, there are folks looking at this area as well. And so, it's statewide. We all need to be tuned in and to decide, as communities, what do we want to see happen here? And to demand answers and put forth a bunch of regulatory solutions. MEIC has a host of resources on its website. You can go to meic.org. You can click on our data center webpage. That's meic.org/data-centers/ and we've got fact sheets, and we have some proposals, some regulatory solutions for data centers.
Oh, good. Okay.
We're developing as we learn more, and then questions as well. Questions that need answering about data centers, and so those are things that we'll constantly be developing as we learn more and sharing as we can what we know. We're going to have another panel discussion in Helena on March 3rd. We are going to do several more. We're going to have one in Missoula, one in Anaconda. Ann Hedges, our executive director, will be in Lewistown for a Central Montana Resource Council event, panel discussion on data centers as well. So there's a lot coming up, and we want to do everything we can to get as much information out there as possible. As you said, we're lucky that we've been in the energy space, the water space for a long time, and then also that we have staff resources to research these things and try to find out what we can. So we're certainly trying to uncover as much as we can, looking at data center development in existing areas.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you. We'll get back to your kiddo. We know that your little one was under the weather, so thank you for joining us.
This winter. Thank you too so very much. I look forward to chatting with both of you soon, and thanks for having me.
Okay, good to see you.
Thanks, Ben, so much.
Talk to you later.
Your wealth of knowledge.
I know, isn't he great?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to do one more for the shout out for the event? Okay.
Yes. Let's do.
So
let
me.
And that was all recorded.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that we can put it onto YouTube.
Yep.
Good, because Brendan's gonna want to see that.
Oh yeah,
everything that he just said is just amazing.
Put it up raw, just like so. You know what I mean? Just so we can get it up. So there you go. Ready? Okay, you're ready.
Okay, Cassie, Just One Montanan. Here's the petition, guys. Go sign it, please. Get it in. Let's do something to fight this, right?
Yes, every Montanan.
This is what we have to have. These guys are unregulated out there. They're not zoned. Mm-hmm. I've called everywhere. They don't even have to have a permit. No. They don't have to do anything.
Wild, Wild West.
Just like they think they don't have to be transparent with us. But guess what? They do have to be transparent with these decision makers. Decision makers matter in moments like this. And we need to get some of them
on board.
We need to get them on board. So, and then here we go. February 26th, everybody. This is Thursday, February 26th at 6 p.m. at the Broadview Community Center. We're having an AI educational forum. This is going to kind of break into some of those AI myths that you might not think are true.
And that are true, that we need to wake up to.
Yeah, we need to wake up to, because we're not just I know you're not selfish. I know I'm not selfish. This is not about me. This is about our children.
This is about
and our grandchildren.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.